Hi everyone. I just wanted to start out by saying thank you for being interested in the CRSTP. I think it's a useful tool. I've seen impact with students, with teachers, and with families. So I just wanted to show you some of the pieces that are part of this tool. I'm going to take off my lovely photo and just get into what's in this folder. So I'm going to start out with the conference presentations and PowerPoints. And in here, I just have a few conference presentations that I have given on this tool, and you can take a look if you're interested in the different presentations. But the gist of it is that this has been a multi-phase process of developing this tool. You can see some of the research that's behind it. And the big thing I want to focus on here is the 3 versions. So there's the secondary version, which is really focused on the ITP and the summary of performance and the IEP. It also looks at self-determination skills and also culturally responsive practices. Then there's the elementary version, which has it's written to 2 different levels, so that it's 13 slides. It's got the 1st and the 4th grade language level, and it's also aligned with the ITPs. We've reduced a lot of the special ed jargon like accommodations, and then also we allow for, if a student wants to draw or identify pictures to communicate their ideas or goals, then instead of actually written word, then that's fine. And then the functional. And this was really more intended for students with more functional goals and supports within the special education services. So it talks about assistive technology, resources, community engagement, age-appropriate interests, hygiene, and then also things like parent conservatorships. And so those are the types of things you'll see there. And here's just a list of all of the different slides that are on here. And you can just see some of the other research and information if you're interested. And I'm going to now go back to this folder. And I also have some examples of the CRSTP for different ages. So this one is kindergarten. Let me see, we've got a secondary one here, and you can see how they wrote it out. I will say every single one of these looks a little different, and that is just fine because these should be a fluid project that students work on. So I'm going to start with the secondary one, and you can see here when you click on it that, let's just pull it up, that we have the slide, and then under the slide, oops, is the, let me just pull this up, is the prompt. And so it goes through and kind of explains, okay, you know, as a teenager, you're going to need these things, you know, and here's the task, and then maybe here are some resources that'll help you fill out that first page. Same thing with the second one, and it goes through and actually has some websites. You can take out, add, delete any of the pieces of these slides, or if you come up with a better prompt, then that's just fine. The one thing I do ask is that once you do make any sort of changes, that you then let me know, like, hey, for example, on this one around overcoming adversity, maybe you find a really great YouTube video or resource online. If you could let me know about that so that I can add that to this list for other people, that would be great. But yeah, this just really tried, what I did, I tried to really come up with all of the areas that I saw were common for students in secondary and high school getting ready to move into adulthood. So that's the secondary one. There's also, because sometimes we have high school students who are working more or understanding things more at the elementary level, so you can always use this. It's slightly shorter, but the same type of concepts, but the language level is a little easier. You can even start someone with the elementary and then maybe have them move to the secondary one once they finish the elementary. Like I said, there's a few more slides, like for example, A and how you can get services. That one's in the secondary one, but in the elementary one, we don't talk about ADA. But we do talk about resources. So let me just pull this up so you can see. So this is kind of the accommodation/resources page, and we put it on there. So that'll take you through. I'm giving you access to this. And the last thing, if you just hold on one second. And the last part is that this is my intellectual property, and so please respect it. If you are going to talk about it or share it, just make sure that the people whom you share it with are also aware that this is something that I have shared with you for free, and that it was created by me. So the very last bit is actually a survey, and this allows me to kind of learn about any sort of new tools you have. So once you finish the CRSTP, then if you wouldn't mind just letting me know, these are, this is who you used it with, these are the changes that you made, how effective is it, and any sort of thoughts that you have, who it impacts, and that allows me to share that information with others when I talk about it. So if you have any questions, please let me know, but you will have access to this full folder, so hopefully this will give you some good ideas. I've also listed them out as Google Docs, which, a PDF, which some teachers like to use the PDF with the questions and then print these out and then kind of hand them out to the class beforehand. That was one of the things that some people said was really helpful for them. It's not required, of course. And then the final thing is if you can make sure to copy this. So once you get to here, it says copy. So you're going to just go to File. So you can either download it, and that's one way to do it. So you can go to File, and you can download it as a PDF, PowerPoint is how I would recommend. Or the other thing you can do is make a copy and then put it into a folder for your school. But any copies that are left in this folder, I every once in a while go out and clean them out, but then people have access to your student stuff. So if you make a copy and put it in a folder for yourself, then that's the easiest way to do it. Or you can, of course, download it and then upload it into a special folder for yourself. But you do have access to this. All right, well, good luck. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to contact me with emails or questions, and I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Have a great day. Bye. All right, so that was my introduction for people who, sorry about that, I've now hit something, there we go, for just kind of the quick overview. Now this is the more in-depth one, and once again I'm going to start with the secondary CRSTP, and I'll go through and describe what each slide is really about as soon as it opens. Oh, it's actually already open, so we can just move it here. So we start out with the title slide, and here we talk about how students can come up with an interesting title if they have their name there. They can use bullet points, pictures, or schoolwork to make their presentation their own. Sometimes changing the template allows students some choice and something more interesting. And then also breaking the slides up into multiple slides. So for example, oh, and here's just two resources that are great for walking students through transition and what it looks like. So I'll just quickly show you. So NTAC, if you're not familiar, is a National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, and they actually go through and talk about evidence-based practices and predictors in secondary education. And so this was a nice report that was put together to really bring everybody up to speed on what students need. So you can see here student-focused planning, student development, that's around education, around employment, around independent living, the research-based practices, and then they give you different types. So And you can see a lot of this is published curricula. So they want you to pay for it, and then you can get a lot of the curriculum. And what I've done is provide mine for free because I too was a special educator that couldn't pay for all of these different things as I was putting together my students' planning. But you can see that self-determination learning model of instruction is seen as helpful. Graphic organizers, these are all evidence-based strategies to teach math, reading, time delay to teach science skills. So these are all the educational pieces. Then for employment, self-determination, for independent living, you can see response prompting to teach food preparation. So there is some discrepancies on how people identify independent living. For the mild to moderate disabilities, I think about independent living being budgeting, being driver's license, being, how will you pay rent, and it could even be around social skills of living with other people, just anything around that realm, but you can use it for what works for you and your students. Now you go into a research, so an evidence-based practice means that there is a significant scientific effect by that intervention. A research-based practice is something that shows promising practices, but it hasn't been done to the level of research as an evidence-based practice, but it's still very good. So Check and Connect is one of the, an accelerated math and high school redirection. These are all programs you can pay for. We've got self-advocacy strategies, self-directed IEPs, which you may have read about or learned about or may already use. The student development, you can see peer tutoring, mnemonics, all of these pieces are part of this. And then employment, self-advocacy strategies, self-directed IEPs, just showing students on how they can talk about and advocate for themselves. And then there's, of course, some developmental practices like response prompting to employment skills. So getting them out into the field in vocational types of training situations. And then here you can see even more independent living and, laundry tasks, social skills, you see come up here, food preparation skills. Then you have promising practices, which aren't as rigorous in the research world, but have also been shown to help. So, and you can kind of go through and take a look at those. And this is just a good list, so you can see, what's out there and what's helping. This table actually goes through, and it's a list of predictors by outcomes. So career awareness, the X in the box says that there is evidence to say that if you teach career awareness, that then students are often more successful with their education and employment skills. So that's why these are useful to see and know. So that is that document. And whoops. And then we have, whoops, cancel that, sorry. Boom. We also have the National Technical Assistance Center. And once again, this is from NTAC, and they go through and allow for transition planning. So you can actually download these. They've got checklists, effective practices, once again, a transition assessment toolkit. So this is the 4th edition of that. So, there's a lot of really good resources on this website that I highly recommend you take a look at. All right, so this is an example of one of the slides that could be split into two. Whoops, let me just pull this down a little bit. And you can see I also have the age-appropriate assessment toolbox. One of the things that they found when they started looking into special education research is that not all of the assignments were actually age-appropriate for many of the students. And so, trying to find the right one, this is a good website. So we've got strengths, interests, preferences, and needs, which is those skills or those elements have been part of post-secondary transition for a long time. So it can be something that, fairly simple, oops, that, let me see, so it's just finding out about the student. So it's, you know, strengths are the things that you're good at, interests are the things that you enjoy doing, preferences are the thing of giving a choice you would prefer to have, and needs are the things that you have to be successful. So there's a few examples here, and then some prompts like, tell me what you're good at. So I'm going to actually capitalize that, whoops. And, you know, possibly using something like the Myers-Briggs or an online skills, you know, inventory that you can find. And there's a lot of free ones, and some of them are color-coded and fun for the students. Then this one goes a little bit more into more of who the child is, so their culture, and that's beyond just race. It is ethnic background, but it's also economic background, how your family sees education, jobs, living arrangements, languages, really highlighting these students who are bilingual and what an amazing skill that is and what they bring to the table when trying to get a job or grocery shop or you know, translating for families. These are some pretty amazing skills that these kids learn just by moving about the world. Ability or disability, so you know, if you've got an IEP, then great, talk about it. But there's a lot of research that shows that students end up leaving high school and not actually knowing that they have a disability or what it means. So, you know, to have a specific learning disability has a variety of meanings. So how does it actually manifest for that child? And giving them the words so that they can advocate for themselves. Changemaker, this is just more of saying, you know what, there are opportunities to change the world. So what does that mean to you, and what would they like to do? It's the hopeful slide in here. We've got goals after high school. So this is the slide that is very general. So, you know, I want to be a teacher. I want to go to the University of Washington. I would like to live in San Diego downtown, or I would like to live with my family. So it can be really, really general. And then here are some websites that go through and allow students to talk or identify some career clusters. So those are nice resources too, because sometimes they say, I don't know what that means, or I don't know what I want to be. I'm still young. One of the things that I've also found out over the years is that oftentimes special educators aren't as familiar with ADA services. And so, you know, bringing yourself up to speed with that, because once they graduate from high school, their IEP does not follow them, but their test scores do. And advocating for different services does. So the way to get ADA services, I've actually just put on this slide. You have to tell your job or school about your disability immediately. You have to bring in proof, so it could be an IEP or some sort of doctor's documentation. And then you have to work with the school or your job on things that will help you, but also that they deem necessary. So these are some examples here of different ADA services or supports. And then there's the academic ability, so students understanding where they are. So for example, for me, I know that I can produce written work fairly quickly, but it always behooves me to have somebody go through with a fine-tooth comb, as they put it, and find, you know, any sort of you know, spelling errors or grammatical errors or punctuation errors that I might have. And so being able to understand that and talk about that is, you know, an okay thing to do. I can read, but sometimes when I'm tired, I can read pages and then not remember any part of it. And so when that happens, when I realize I'm reading and not remembering things, then I slow myself down and I go through and start interacting with the text. And I start highlighting and circling and writing notes in the margin. And that helps me with writing. With reading. With math, I now rely heavily on the calculator on my phone, but you know, in the past, it was more, as long as I knew the formula, I could probably figure out the answer, and I was very good at estimating. So being able to just kind of talk about that. I have a sentence starter in blank subject, I can, strength, but I need help with and then giving the improvement. So that sometimes helps students also see that they do have strengths in these same areas. We don't want to get them into deficit thinking. So my emotional reality. So another thing that they found is that students oftentimes get out of high school and the protection of, a nationally mandated curriculum or setting, and then they struggle. And so really kind of talking about how they will deal with different stressors in life is actually setting our students up for more success. So helping them become more self-aware, proactive, perseverant, have goal setting, but also adjusting and maintaining and accomplishing. So effective support systems, and then also emotional coping strategies. So all of these things we can start talking to them as high school students, and then helping them build these skills as they move on through life. This would be an example of some trauma-informed teaching that we can do. I wouldn't do this with a new student who I didn't know really well, and I also wouldn't do this all in one day. But I might have a quick write on naming possible stressors in your life or your future, or how do you do, or what do you do when you're stressed, or that type of thing. And then I would close up that discussion as well with some good techniques. But then I would have them start writing these things down and putting it in there, knowing that we all do get stressed and we all do feel overwhelmed, but that we do also have some coping strategies for that. Next is the helpful accommodations and modifications. So I define what that means, and then I give some examples of some resources that you might want to put on. And this is really around what does the youth need in order to be most successful and productive. There was a time where I couldn't type. I didn't have any, or I had very little use of my fingers. And so I started using the voice to text, and I was able to continue with my education and my job at that point with the voice to text. So it's knowing about these types of accommodations or modifications, and then actually being able to ask for them. Extra time is a really common one that also jobs and higher ed will often give that one. So, just knowing that you can go and advocate, which I had to do because I was in my doctoral program when all of that happened. Self-efficacy. If you believe that you can do it, you most likely can at least work towards it. And so having students really think about their self-determination. And I have let me just see real quickly here. Down here, I do have a link to the self-determination assessment. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, here it is. We've got the different forms for different people to use. So they've done a lot of work here, but it just helps you identify some areas of growth and also some strengths that you have there. So if they just want to fill that sentence in, that's fine. If they want to go and look deeper, then that's a nice follow-up assignment. All right, overcoming adversity. So we have disability, racism, sexism, and economic issues here. And then we give videos that go with each one of these. But talking to students about the fact that any or all of these could affect them in future life, and so helping them get some of the tools so that they can overcome these adversities, even though you would hope that they wouldn't have to. I used to use restorative circles, and then we would have discussions about these different topics. And so even somebody who didn't feel comfortable saying, I have a disability, they were okay saying, well, for my cousin or my friend sitting next to me, something that they could do is, and then work through that. Staying connected. So people who stay connected to their community are able to overcome even more obstacles. So, and community can be anything. It can be family members, it can be auntie, or it could be your church. So really trying to help them think about ways that they can be part of the community and continue to give. I've had this slide turn into service learning projects before, where they gave back to their community. And this is now where we're going into taking our short-term goals from slide 4 and we're turning them into long-term, or the long-term goals for slide 4, and turning them into manageable, smart, and achievable goals for each one of employment, education, and independent living. And so I give some examples of things that could be in there, but this is really giving them an opportunity to think beyond their life right then. And, you know, okay, you want to be a lawyer. What do you think you need to do to be a lawyer? And there are some resources as well at the bottom for each one of these. So yeah, if you have any other questions, you know, like I said, the elementary one, it is very similar. I just changed the wording and the prompts a little bit to be more kid-friendly. And the functional one also has ideas about, you know, what will the family do when the child is older and more independent, and what kind of plans are around there. So you can choose which CRSTP you'd like to use, and like I said, it should be an ongoing fluid document that you revisit over and over again throughout the year. All right, well, good luck with this, and you know, please also protect my intellectual property and share it appropriately. Thank you and have a great day.